Hey, everybody. Michael J. Nelson here, along with Connor Listoka. Connor, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. It's rapidly approaching Christmas time. Did some holiday shopping this weekend. Just really feeling the season. Got some Plaz gifts, some Plaz socks, Plaz tie for my dad.
Did you, when you went to the mall to get them, did you take a land van?
Yeah, land van there, air van home.
Land bus or Airbus on the man. When you go online, when I do it here, I'm in the Minneapolis area. Go to the Hennepin County website and you put in like, okay, what is the route that I have to take to get the land van over to the Airbus and then to the, it's really complicated. So
well, yeah, I mean, municipal systems websites are notoriously bad before you start introducing the difference between air, van, land cab, walk ramps. It made it all a lot worse, frankly, when we made that shift.
Well, at least
a lot worse and a lot dumber.
At least you got me my gift. I appreciate that, and I look forward to
problem.
it. My Plaz gift.
Yeah, the Plaz gifts. We had some people take a Plaz quiz over on our Patreon page, a Plaz quiz that you made up with all the different Plaz terms that had come in the book, whether or not it was sort of like
I am
fanfic for Plazes.
I am excited about that because the results are a little bit. I don't want to say they're shocking, but there are some of the questions that befuddled our listening audience. And explain what our show is first before we get to that.
Yeah, so we're doing 372 Pages We'll Never Get Back is a podcast where we read books that we expect that we're going to hate. We've read the oeuvre of Ernest Cline, Ready Player One, and Armada. We did not care for those books. We read Jim Tice's The Eye of Argon, regarded by the people who have read it as the worst book ever written. We quite enjoyed that one.
I liked that one a lot.
He was a scrappy underdog. And now we're reading Tekwar by the coined last time Shatlart, William Shatner, and his ghostwriter Ron Goulart, who have constructed quite the saga of futuristic drug dealers. Guys talking about futuristic drug dealers.
Yeah, we've met nary a one so far. We are stalled on the Plaz gate. We are awaiting orders from our Plaz pilot. I don't know.
We once did. Have we talked about it on here? I can never remember. But we once screened a movie we were considering for Riff Tracks called Piranha, and the whole point of that was you were watching this movie about explorers in like Brazil or something. And about an hour in, we turned to each other and we're like, they haven't shown any piranhas. And then from that point,
I referenced that the other day about how much you loved that movie, and you're like, we have to do this.
From that point on, it just became they're not going to show a piranha. This is unbelievable. The piranhas were never mentioned. They were never like looming as a menace. And then they got to the end, and maybe there was like some bubbling in the water that like. They never showed piranhas, though. It was amazing, and I was outvoted like 5-1 that we could not do the movie because it was very boring otherwise.
So you would have put our paying audience through a 2-hour movie of you get it? There's no piranhas.
So that's what this is sort of like with the drug dealers. This with Bennett Sands and Sonny Hokori are the piranhas of this book. But yes, we like I was saying, we gave these people a Plaz quiz. Our generous Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/372 pages. And on your quiz, out of 20, I got 15 right. So that is 75%.
What?
That was a C, I think, in my high school, college days, right? 75%?
I think that was once you millennials came along. Yes, they started grading it much more. That would have been a solid D or C minus in my day.
Well, it was not a good performance, but yeah, we had a bunch of people take it, and I think the highest one was 18 out of 20. No one got a perfect, but a guy named A.D. Jameson and Mark Berger both got 18 out of 20.
Yeah, I after I wrote it, I went in and took it because I was doing the test because I was looking for obviously for spellings and errors and things because it was really hard to keep track of. I had a list with the bolded things that were real and the non-bolded things that were not, were fake. And I still, when I finished the test, I'm like, sure I messed one of these up because there's no way that Plaz Dome isn't a real thing, but it was not a real thing. And that was the one that fooled the most people. I was happy to see that my anchor as they call it, when you put in, you want to make sure that people are, actually paying attention. And taking it. And so that one, the anchor worked out well. And that was Jazz Plaz, which, so nobody fell for that. But Plaz hair surprisingly fooled a number of people that I called out and lightly teased on the Patreon site. So.
That was probably like the Mandela effect, just because hair has been so prominent that they tricked themselves into remembering that. Well, my favorite comment was a guy named Namzad, probably his real name. His wife, who was not reading the book, got a 14 out of 20, and he got 11 out of 20, and he is reading the book. So,
yes, I noted that. So we're doing something right.
But yeah, to A.D. Jameson and to Mark Berger, I say, well done, Mark Berger. Well done. Huh? Huh? Ooh.
Connor writes for Riff Track. He's a producer and writer at Riff Track.
I guess I'll pack it in. And that wasn't even an original joke. I yelled that at a guy named what was his name? Was it Mark Hamburger? Neil?
Oh yeah, right.
At the baseball game we went to 2 years ago, St. Paul Saints, he was pitching, and he struck a guy out, and I yelled out, "Well done!" So I've had that in my quiver for 2 more years, waiting for another opportunity.
And I remember you were sitting in the middle between the three of us that were there, and you looked to your left and you looked to your right. No reaction. You looked to Mark Hamburger, who was pitching. No reaction. So I'm surprised you brought it up 2 years later, but there we are.
Oh.
All right, let's dig into Tekwars chapters 22 through 26 inclusive.
Yep, let's do it. So this one, where we last left Jake Cardigan, he was sensing that he might be getting set up by some Macs, the Machinas, but nevertheless he charged ahead toward an alley because there was a young girl who was being chased by an evil guy, and he's a good guy. So regardless of whether it was a setup, he heads after her to rescue her. And there's no reason to dance around it. It was a setup.
Yes.
It was a setup.
I think it was one of his weird monologue moments where he mused out loud. Well, this is probably a setup. And then the end of the chapter was he charged down the. Oh, there it is. Yeah. I have it right here. This could be a setup, Jake reflected. These are out loud. These are not him. But I better make sure. And then drawing his las gun, I refuse to call it Lay's gun, he headed for the alley. So that's where we were.
So this is sort of like, I read this section twice. And so by the end of this chapter, it's revealed that this is a setup. But it's sort of like when you know the twist at the end of, Usual Suspects or Sixth Sense, and then you go back and rewatch it with that knowledge, and you think to yourself, does this still hold up? Like, did they play this honestly? So I think that as we go forward talking through this chapter, we're just going to keep in mind that this is all a big setup. So everything that happens here, all the details were provided. This is part of their big plan. And what is that plan? The plan is to lure Jake to the bull ring, which is where he was going.
The Toro Dome and the what are
Toro
the
Dome
or whatever.
Yeah, they were trying to get him to the Pleasure Dome or the Highlight Courts or whatever. But he was going there to meet somebody, and so this setup to lure him into an alley is so that the girl can then bring him to the Toro Dome, right? Which is where he was going.
Yes, he was headed there. He was asking her directions to it. Could you please? Yes. So she then was chased by the evil cyborg with a knife hand into an alley, where he then followed her. And let's just talk through that. Stopping at the edge of the dark alley mouth, a common way to refer to the entrance to an alley, Jake heard the sound of the girl crying out in pain, and then hard metal scraping against stone. "I won't miss again, Chiquita," came the voice of the cyborg. So first of all, he heard the sound of her crying out in pain, and then the cyborg says, "I won't miss again." So I guess he missed, causing her to cry out in pain. Yeah, well, look, they did not have a lot of time to rehearse. This was, it was almost pure improv. It was like beats. I'm sure they had the beats written down. Sure. Like, okay, I'll run out the door. I'll have my knife hand up. And then I'll go down the mouth of the alley, to which the cyborg girl replies, "The mouth of the alley?" And she says, yeah, look, never mind. They just go into the alley. So, yeah, I guess the improv beats were, I'm sure they would have fixed it later had Jake not entered the alley. They would have been
sure,
like,
they were
it was so hard. I avoiding your knife hand, I scraped my shoulder against the brick wall of the alley. They would have corrected it in improv after, but yes.
Yeah. They thought they were going to have a bit more time, so they were going to like sit back there, just sort of do some backstage banter, and then they would lapse into like, what is it? There's a cartoon or something where they're going behind a wall and then they're making these noises like they're really like beating the hell out of someone. So someone is acting like they're in pain, maybe at The Simpsons or a Disney cartoon or something. But that's what they were going to do, like oh no, please, no, right. Yeah, that type of thing.
And he was probably telling her like, don't do the sound effects with your mouth. You're not that good. Let me do that. I'm
right.
The cyborg that can do actually mouth sounds better. So
I did have that tongue implant. That's
right.
That's
so
my
I could do like boom,
ooh, ah, ooh, ow, ooh. He had the Michael Winslow 2.0 installed. Cyborg says to her, Jake is overhearing this from the mouth of the alley. He says, "Hey, there's only just 3 of us now. Rico probably isn't in the mood anymore after the way you kicked him." So this is all, again, part of the backstory they had set up. They sat back, they rehearsed this. They were like, so here's what is going to be like. You're going to have already kicked Rico in the crotch, so he won't be attending. Should we make it just 3 people in the first place? No, we should make it much more complicated and make you remember that there is a 4th person who you've already attacked, who is not going to be attacking you in this second part of the plan.
Right. And that's, he told her, just let your creativity flow. How are you thinking about Rico? What's he look like? What's Rico to you?
Right. When he enters a room, like what part of his body does he lead with? Does he lead with his chin? Or does he sort of like lead with his knees? Just, that's how you would interact with Rico, is based on how he's being built in your mind.
How bouncy is his hair? Let's just, I don't know. Just think about whatever you want Rico to be, and then let's do this improv.
Does he use impenetrably weird slang like toke and old boy to refer to people? So then Jake bursts into the alley, and right away he starts letting you know that he's wearing boots on his feet. That's important.
That was my favorite thing, that because every time his foot is mentioned, I believe the boot accompanies it, as far as his foot is once again booted. I was so...
It's not that... Yeah, it's happened before.
We're on solid ground again. Okay, his foot is booted. Thank you. He did not take off his boots as he walked down, after he got off the tourist bus with... What were their names? Rupert and Marcia or something?
Yeah, George and Marcia, the hippos from James Marshall books, from Binghamton, New York. That was the important thing.
Yeah.
Chroniclers of life's inequities and poverty.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he comes out with his boots. There's never been anything notable about these boots. They're not his lucky boots. They're not the boots his father left him. They're not the boots his ex-partner was wearing when he gets killed. They're just boots. They have no special abilities. But he kicked out with his booted right foot, catching the knifer in the groin. Madre, he started to double up. Jake kicked again, his boot toe connecting with the cyborg's chin. So it's
now look, we had a discussion last time about the cyborg thing. This still is not sitting well with me.
Yeah, well, it should not be sitting well because it's inept as hell. Because the very next sentence, his boot connecting with the cyborg's chin, the next sentence, the young man jerked completely upright.
I'm still not getting this, and I know we were corrected by a...
Yeah, a lot of people wrote in.
But I don't refer to people who have small parts of their body. Right. My dad had, I think he had something in his heel or something. I don't know. I did not refer to my father as a cyborg.
Yeah,
and then the next sentence, the old man came downstairs and made me go cut wood, even though he had a small piece of metal in his heel. Like, it's just not that is not how we use this, right? In fiction, anyway.
Yeah, no, especially in sci-fi. Like, it it has its definition. You know, it's like when Superman died and came back, there was one Superman who was like a half Terminator, and that is what a cyborg is in the grand scheme of things. If you want to be pedantic about it, that maybe that is your cyborg power. However, it's a weird way. It's a weird thing to use interchangeably with young man.
It very much is, and it's confusing and inept in this, and I'm calling it. I want no more objections to this. This is garbage.
Right. But so this is a great description. The young man jerked completely upright as though he were trying to stretch and grow taller. His left arm slapped at his side, and he produced a puzzled whimpering noise in his throat. Then he began folding up, first at the knees, then in the middle. He hit the ground hard, flattened out, and stayed there. So I have two things.
Yeah.
I
would like to add an addendum to those when you're done. Okay.
So he produced a puzzled whimpering noise in his throat. And so my take on that was the Tim Allen Home Improvement noise. I think it was sort of like a That was my read on that. Second,
I was going to wait before you. That was my only comment. I wanted a contest on that because we did it last time. There are many puzzled noises in many throats, but they're always combined with something else, right? It's always like his attempt to laugh stuck in his whatever. The winger can't.
Almost laugh.
Almost laugh. And so you did yours already. I'll do my puzzled whimpering noise in my throat. There, that's all I got.
Right. And so that's what was caused by him getting kicked in the crotch, was that throat noise. He didn't get like punched in the neck or anything like that.
Right.
But then my second thing. This is my mental image of him arm slapping at his side, then folding up at the knees, then in the middle, hitting the ground hard, flattening out, and staying there. Is in Mike Tyson's Punch Out, when Little Mac knocks out one of the big guys he fights, they'll often do that. They'll like jerk up in the air, like neck first, and then sort of do a comical like stretch out, and then hit the ground flattened like that. So that's what I think Shatlart was going for in that. It was a tribute to the knockout punches in that game.
It's funny you should mention that. I had that exact picture in my own head, of course. Yes.
So then we've got some more of their plan, the cyborg's plan. They start shooting at Jake and the girl. They like blast him with their flamethrower arms. A fat line of sizzling orange flame left the cyborg's arm, cut across the alley, and cooked a large black circle on the wall behind where Jake and the girl had been. So this is part of the setup. They were planning this, and they were like, so in order to get him where he's going to go, the point of him going there, again, is that we're going to kill him. We will then come very close to killing him in the alley. Right. And only by the grace of him like jumping out of the way will we not kill him.
And you, of course, the big one. I think there's references to the big one and the closer one. He doesn't really, there's no physical.
Right.
But one is 25 feet up on a plasrod fire escape. So that one. I just want to call that back because that befuddled everyone.
That was in the quiz.
That was in the quiz, and so many people got it wrong. Plasrod, it's right there. Anyway,
right.
Continue.
Nice. So yeah, but then he like fires through with his las gun. He fires through the plasrods, collapses the fire escape, and then the guys, like one of their like flamethrowers burns the other guy. Again, probably all part of their plan to hurt each other as they're luring the guy to where he was already going. Right. But then we start getting this is fantastic. We start getting the little girl's backstory, which I have to imagine that they again workshopped with her. She says, "Oh, at Toro Plaza, that's where they were luring him to." Well, we live at the Toro Plaza, except that my father, who is sort of a watchman there, isn't supposed to have his family living with him. If you consider my stupid little brother and me as a family. So again, we learn later that this is a robot. The girl is a robot. She's like the girl on Small Wonder. She's not a kamikaze robot. We know that those exist, and that you can easily kill somebody by just sending a robot who looks convincingly like a real person to go and explode. They've opted not to do that.
Oh, also, I would point out, you would have a ring that you touch someone's neck, and they could also just pass out, you stomp on their neck with your booted foot, and they're dead. Or you just kill them, whatever, with their flamethrower. However you want to do it.
But if you did either one of those, you couldn't get them to the place they were already going where you could then kill them. So, I mean,
true.
You see the flaw in either of those plans. They might sound easy, but, but yeah, so her backstory is that her father is a night watchman at the Toro Plaza and isn't supposed to have his family living with them, which is a very funny thing to imagine.
I love it.
But then so she says, once in a while, my father gets involved in things that are shady. Then he'll tell me and Gennaro, that's my stupid little brother, to go away for a while. So they named the brother. She 3 times calls him her stupid little brother, which I guess is just in these bad guys' mind. This is how little kids talk about their younger siblings, I guess.
Well, who ultimately programmed Strella, which is her name? Strella yes. is the small wonder who is fantastic, made of plastic. The other thing, there's a couple swears coming up, so if you want to cover your ears, earmuffs for little kids in the room.
Sure.
Here's a line from Strella. No, a son of a bitch who calls himself Sombra. He usually has 2 or 3 other assholes who work with him on his jobs. And that's what made me wonder, is Strella like, wait a minute, Strella, come on. You're supposed to be no more than 13. What was the age? It was
Yeah. It was definitely, it might have even been younger than that. But yeah, it was one of those vague, no more than 13.
Strella, come on, stop improvising. Stick with the plan. Your stupid little brother, your dumb dad.
Right. Well, her father obviously is not he's not much of a father, she says. So that might be the lack of parental supervision or lack of parental role model. It might be the reason she's talking like a bouncer at a strip club as a 13-year-old girl. But so her father, I guess Jake was asking about what they were going to do during the setup, I guess. Or maybe this was talking about the fat guy, but her father said that something about using a stunner and keeping the man out of sight for a few days. So that's her talking about the plan to lure Jake there, stun him, keep him out of sight for a few days, which is the plan that she's still helping to put into place by luring him to the place he was already going.
Right.
Yes. So this is, I guess, her telling the truth, but he doesn't, she's having a little fun here. She's like when you're setting up a surprise party for someone and you're like sort of like lying to their face, but it's going to be all revealed again in 30 minutes, like when everyone says surprise, but you're being like, oh, it's too bad that, your brother couldn't make it, like his flight got delayed type of thing, knowing full well that that's going to be what actually happens.
Yeah. You have to have a little of verisimilitude in it, stirred in with all the other lies about like, I'm actually a robot and stuff like that, to make him even go along with it at all.
Right.
It's like I told you about my inability to go see someone's play or some kid's play without, and then having to meet them afterwards. When I'm trying to lie to them, my face contorts horribly into a gruesome sneer as I lie. Right. So as I'm sitting there watching a play, I will sit and go, what is it about this that I actually do like? What do I? And then when I go up, I can just lead with it, and my face will tell the truth, and I can, So maybe that's what she's doing. Like she's just telling a little bit of truth so that she can get through this thing.
Grounds the rest of the lie. Wow. Yeah. So don't invite Mike to your dance recitals and children's plays, everybody. That is unless you want to see that expression. I'm curious about it myself. Actually, do you shrug one shoulder as you're lying like that?
I do. Only one. That's my tell.
But then, she leads him to the Toro Dome and the Toro Plaza, and she gets him through the door. Here is Gate X, an old service entrance. Stopping, the girl pressed the palm of her right hand to the recog panel at the side of the wide glass door. My father rigged this so it'll let me and my stupid little brother in. So I was like, how, before you really knew that this was a setup, how awful is this kid that she's like, that this is she lives in this horrible setting, horrible poverty, but this is what stands out about her situation as being unbearable.
Her stupid little brother. Here, that exact moment, I had this line about it. So it was after a few seconds, it slid away to the right, and I just wondered, did that start another? Like during those few seconds, was it like, so, Strella,
right.
You like your classes? Oh, the door slid open. Okay, it's been a few seconds. But I just imagine just long enough to be kind of uncomfortable with a girl who's almost 12 or whatever.
Right, exactly. Your father, he's how many other watchmen are there? Do they have? Probably got to be at least 3 shifts.
Come on, open up, slide to the right, slide to the
hitting the door open button like an elevator. But yeah, he's just sort of glancing around, being like, "Yeah, there's a lot of like shady and illegal stuff going down here in Mexico. I hope no one thinks that I'm doing anything weird here as I'm parading through these back alleys with this 13-year-old girl who might be a robot or."
Right. Hey, quick quiz before we, because this is towards the end of the chapter, right?
Yeah.
I passed this over. When he went into the building itself, as they're going into that back entrance or whatever to the Toro build, whatever, he smelled damp earth and death. Mm-hmm. Little quick quiz for you. What other things in Tekwar smell like damp earth?
Oh, man.
Do you remember that phrase? If anyone's out there listening, don't cheat. Don't look it up. Don't word search it.
Damp earth.
I'll give you 2 seconds and then I'll say the answer.
Was it the place, the Mexican cafe he went into after the earthquake?
Oh, so close. The Mexican Federal Police Building.
Oh, right. Yes.
Smelled like where he met the other crusty of the 14 crusty captains he's run into.
Saxophone or something. Right. Rats. Oh.
Yeah. And then here's another, before we close out this chapter. One of the cyborgs says to Jake, I'm sure he kicks him with a booted foot or whatever. The cyborg says, "You shouldn't have done that."
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
So they were programmed with terrible grammar, I guess.
Yes, they say for all intensive purposes, they just have that feature built in to sort of make them more conversational.
Hey, that's a mute point, buddy. All of that stuff.
You don't want your robots to be, it'd be uncanny valley if they didn't make a few slip ups with their grammar every now and then. It would be too.
That's true, and they are. I guess they're ESL2s, probably. So yeah, that's.
I did have to Google that one just because I was like, all right, I don't know, I don't want to be pedantic about this, but that is not the correct grammar. It sounds like the way that you would say shouldn't have or shouldn't have.
It sounds like it, but it's not. It's just not. So I just wondered, is that, once again, are we giving too much credit if we think that was like a joke or we are?
I think
we are
giving
right?
too much credit.
Okay, yes.
That was my decision. But yeah, so the chapter ends with him. He takes a step over the threshold when the girl gave him a surprisingly powerful shove in the back. So again, she probably could have snapped his neck at any given time. He went staggering forward, nearly losing his balance. He spun around just in time to see the door snap shut on him. So it didn't take a few seconds this time. Well, he observed, this was a setup after all. So when you take it's like that Andy Rooney game. You take the first and last line of Andy Rooney's speeches. You take the last line of the last chapter and then the last line of this chapter. It makes a nice little package.
Yep, so good. I was digging through my desk the other day, and that's why the Nazis should probably not have gotten away with what they did.
So that's the end of that chapter. I think we can go right into chapter 24 before we break for some fanfic. But the whole setup was worth it because now they've got this very complicated sort of Bond villainy scheme to kill him, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. This is in chapter 23 is one of my favorite and most confounding chapters in this book, which we'll get into. But yes,
wait, chapter 25, you mean, or chapter 24?
No, chapter 23. That's what we're in now.
I'm sorry,
right?
I had this one labeled as 23. You're right.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yep. This is chapter 23. This is the bull, the bull chapter.
Got it.
Once again, very specific time periods. Jake noticed the bulls. This is, I think, the first sentence. I think. Yeah, Jake noticed the bulls. About 10 seconds after he discovered that he no longer had his las gun. So again, we won't go through this exercise again, but just count it off yourself. So
right, okay.
He notices that he doesn't have it, and then about 10 seconds.
Right.
And then
9, 11, either one of them. But, yeah, so he's locked in a room with mechanical bowls. And as the book makes abundantly clear, that is the only notable feature of this room. It goes to great lengths to describe how there's nothing else in this room in terms of escape routes, windows. But there are 4 giant mechanical bowls, which it takes them about 10 seconds to notice.
Yeah. And by the way, there's another specific period of time. He says they're dormant, turned off. Jake said to himself after watching them for a few more seconds.
I really like that part because I like that he sort of did the oops, my bad, that's my scenario thing we mentioned earlier. They're dormant, turned off. Thanks for the clarification, myself.
Right.
I wanted to make sure everyone that I knew what that meant, the reader, but also myself, since I'm saying it aloud.
Hey, me, just save a few words next time and just tell me that. But this brings me to a very interesting thing. Because this chapter is so interesting, I once again went to my friends who had worked on the audiobook. And I came up with a real gem. Because I was puzzled by this. Maybe you noticed this in this chapter, is that Jake... He's alone in a room because the robot pushes him in.
Yeah.
Right? Locks the door.
Strella.
Yeah. And then he's in with the bulls, which he'll describe in this chapter. But during this whole chapter, he talks to himself a lot. Did that jump out at you?
Of course it did. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
It's insane. I mean, he has done it before, like in his room as he's getting dressed, but like now he's in a... he's in a life or death situation, and he's still like wasting his mental capacities to spout nonsense.
So I wrote down, and I put it together in sort of an actor's monologue. I'll just read the first few, and then I'll cut to how they handle it in the Audible book, because it's so puzzling. So
okay, great. I'm eager to hear it.
I don't remember who is. Well, look, we'll get to the who rescues him later, but here's part of the monologue. They're dormant, turned off. Getting out of here is going to be tough, especially without my gun. Could be there's a way out of here at the other end. Oops. Pretty obvious stuff. Black smoke. And it goes on like that. So anyway, here's how they solved it in the Audible book. And there's a bit of a spoiler at the end, but it'll be worth it. Trust me. Here we go. Jake noticed the bulls about 10 seconds after he discovered he no longer had his las gun.
They're dormant, turned off. Getting out of here is going to be tough, especially without my gun. Could be there's a way out of here down at the other end of... Oops! Pretty obvious stuff. Black smoke, flashing eyes.
Jake?
Oh, hey, Beth.
What the hell are you doing?
Oh, I'm just trying to dodge these robot bulls.
No, I see that. I meant, what are you saying to yourself? You knew you were alone in here, right?
Oh, that. Oh, I was just saying, among other things, oops to myself out loud while fighting robot bulls. Don't you do that?
No.
Oh, well, sure. I suppose cyborgs don't talk.
I'm not a cyborg. I'm an Andy. Do you see a knife hand on me?
Jake said to himself.
Jake, old buddy, have you seen a knife hand on her? Anywhere near her dark hair or long legs?
See, there it is. Stop that.
Sorry, but I bet Strella, the completely human, no more than 13 girl, does it too.
She's an android too, you moron.
Sure. Next you're going to tell me Winger's an android, or the sombrero-wearing taxi driver's one, or that the kamikaze android of Dr. Dannenberg was an android.
They are. You know they are.
Jake said to himself.
This Beth cyborg is hot. I mean, like, ooga hot, but she's about as bright as the vaudeville comedy act, the Boxing Gordon Sisters.
No, cardigan!
There, does that, I mean...
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean...
They're adding clarity, which I appreciate, because
it does. That's why they're the masters of what they do. I mean, they take this, they work with it, and they turn it into something that's better than the printed word. I think that's why audiobooks are growing in popularity.
Exactly, and I'm stunned that this hasn't come out. But they'll give me a release date when it does. But anyway,
let me plug something for a minute there. We have the Audible is putting out audiobook version of my book, The Pole Vault Championship of the Entire Universe. And you are playing one of the two main characters.
Yeah, but don't bury the lead. This is your book. This is exciting stuff.
It is exciting stuff. Yeah. It's coming out, I think, well, by the time you hear this, it'll be out in like a month. It comes out on January 20th, audible.com/polevault. And the cast is really, 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 really awesome. It's got Kevin and Bill are in it from Riff Tracks, Paul F. Tompkins, Eliza Skinner, John DiMaggio, a.k.a. Bender from Futurama, Sashir Zamata from Saturday Night Live, Janet Varney, our good friend from Riff Tracks. Brother, I'm probably forgetting some people, but it's Weird Al Yankovic is in it.
Our good friend from Riff Tracks, yeah.
So I will be plugging that again. But you listen to these Tekwar audiobooks, you see what a great job they've been doing. They capture just so many nuances that you miss when you read it. So I'm looking forward to them giving the treatment to this. We can I don't know, maybe we can leak a scene from that at some point in time.
Oh, that'll be fun. Another leak. God, I love the leaks.
Nice.
So good.
So the bulls are attacking him as he's mumbling to himself, and the bulls are pretty much cartoon bulls. Like the way that they introduce them is they start powering up, and the Crimson One had given an angry snort, blackish smoke spewing out of his nostrils. His eyes were alive now, glowing a dazzling yellow, and with his right front hoof, he was pawing at the floor. Pretty obvious stuff, commented Jake. So that's another one where I guess they're self-aware at this point in time. Like they go on to say that, like, sure, the audience would want to see bulls behave like they would in a movie or a cartoon. But they
what did Jake, is Jake so cynical? What happened to you up in the freezer, man? You wanted to see these people want to see bulls behaving like bulls.
Right.
Things have changed since I used to want to have bulls put on a little dress, do a little hula dance, and then kill me. Like, what's he asking for? Obvious stuff.
And again, this is not something that he's previously aware of. I mean, certainly in this world, this would be something that people would be well aware of, is like mechanical representations of animals behaving like they would in a Warner Brothers cartoon. But this is just something that he's evidently encountering for the first time.
Imagine him going through Disneyland or Disney World and, just on the rides and stuff. Like,
right.
Oh, pirates, digging up treasure and saying, pretty obvious stuff.
Right. Can we, anyone want to switch seats on this ride? This guy next to me is a pretty big jerk.
His booted foot is also ramming into mine.
Right. Oh, Goofy's taking a picture with an adorable kid wearing mouse ears. Pretty obvious stuff.
But the end of chapter 23, which is short, I'm sure you had the same reaction that I did. Globo, baby.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
He's back.
He's rescued, as we heard in the excerpt, by Android Beth.
Yes.
And then she comes, and evidently what had happened was that Globo had sold him out. After setting up, again, this is so much more convoluted than it needed to be. Globo had told him to go to this place, right?
Yeah.
To the Toro Dome. But then he set him up. But he told him to go there. Jake went there thinking it could be a setup, but now Globo is like sweating and everything because it was a setup.
Wait, Globo is sweating? I have all of his sweating written down. I'm very excited to read that.
Good. So yeah, I think that was the first one. Read the first one, I guess. I've got the first one marked, I think, but
the fat man wiped at his perspiring forehead.
Okay. That was right after, I guess, said the Fat Globo.
Oh yes, okay.
Which is like, that's like a first grader like insulting a kid on the playground.
The Fat Globo. There's only one Globo in the book. You went out of your way to describe him as fat. Right. I think we're all on board.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, my takeaway was that I think we're supposed to admire Globo, maybe find him attractive after these descriptions of him just pouring sweat and dabbing at his forehead with his gross handkerchief that he keeps on him at all times.
The fat man mumbled something inaudible. These are just all the descriptions of Globo in the thing. If I've missed any, let me know. Globo concentrated on his fat fingers as they poked and pressed at the damp handkerchief. Globo gave his forehead another nervous swipe, starting to wad up his handkerchief. He used the handkerchief again on his sweating forehead.
Oh my God.
And then, can I give away the the end? Jake borrowed Beth's stun gun from her, turned and used it on the fat man.
Wow, Jake and the fat man in the same sentence.
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Coincidence? Yeah. I hardly think so.
Yeah, he could have Goulart could have done some novelizations of that TV show. But yeah, so like I think that the Globo is probably, you know how like when actors have like earned enough capital in Hollywood that they can like call in favors and get their dream role made.
Yeah.
Like Jim Carrey was like, I've done all these dumb movies, but my dream has been to play Andy Kaufman. That's the role I want to do. And so I'm going to get this movie done. I'm sure there's countless other examples. I feel like Globo has got to be that type of role for someone out there. They're like, I've paid my dues. I finally got an Academy Award nomination and now I want to play the sweating fat man.
Yeah.
So I'm calling in the producers. We're going to make it happen.
I'm an offer only actor, and you don't come to me until you bring the script. Maybe it's that you've heard the rumors about the Confederacy of Dunces. You know how that was passed around.
Yep, everyone's passion project and sort of a doomed script.
Yeah, and it gets somebody's going to play it now. I mean, that's literally been like 35 years of. It's
insane.
Yeah, Globo was the same way. Yeah.
It's like George Clooney is like, yeah, well, for every Ocean's 13 I make, that means I can make a Syriana type of thing. So that's Globo is, I'm sure, is going to be his next passion project. So yeah, that takes us to the end of chapter 23. And I think before we get to 24, it's probably a good idea to.
Yeah, fresh from my triumph, I would point out.
It's been like a feast or famine kind of season for you, in terms of these identification.
Well, let's concentrate on the feast because that's the thing we're closest to.
Sure.
There was a commenter on our Patreon who asked me about my pencil choice again as he took the Plaz quiz because of my enormous success from last episode. So it's a Dixon Ticonderoga number 2, which I realize now I don't have with me.
Well.
Oh, no.
We'll see. Hey, maybe the fanfic identification was in you all along. The pencil wasn't magic at all.
That's right.
All right. Well, we got 5 again. People have sent in their fan fiction of Tekwar, and people have really latched on to some key Shetlardian ingredients to make these as convincing as possible. So any of them could be real. None of them could be real. There could be a mix. So we're going to see if Mike can identify which ones are real and which ones are fanfic. Number 1.
All right.
Hey, they told me there was a malfunctioning robot up here, senor. With a slight limp, Gomez made his way into the living room of the suite. You've been misinformed. There's no malfunctioning robot here. Ah, but there's where you're wrong, amigo. Smiling, Gomez reached up to touch the mechanical man's silvery neck. A harsh buzzing sound came from something concealed in his hand. Winger's eyelids started blinking in double time. You used a disabler on me. That's most illegal. Both hands dropped heavily to his side, his eyes clicked shut, and he ceased to function.
Oh, my goodness.
The return of 2 favorites.
Yeah, I have, as God is my witness, have not looked ahead to see if Winger's in it. And so I'm excited to guess on that one. All right, carry on.
We have 80, 90 pages left in the book at this point in time, so keep that in mind too. Number 2, Jake gripped the Plaz disc tightly in his left hand, cradling it with his right. The projected hollow image of his son had held his attention for a full minute. Beth placed her slender arm around his shoulder, brushing her dark hair from her shoulder with the other. Bennett Sands is Sonny Hikori, announced Jake, and he has my son.
Mm-hmm. All right, carry on.
Number 3. Fingering his las gun, Jake paced. The lanky young man stood with his body crookedly resting against the counter. Why haven't you asked where Mom is? Jake felt himself make a face. I just saw your mom. Dan rolled his eyes far up into his head. You came here hanging with a droid, and you thought that was Mom?
Wow. So, sorry, I was making notes there. I was off mic. Okay, so he felt himself. Just read that one sentence again.
Jake felt himself make a face.
Okay.
I just saw your mom.
All right. Okay. Carry on.
Number 4. In his stifling prison cell, Globo attempted to staunch the flow of perspiration pouring from his bulbous and amply proportioned head with a handkerchief, which was not up to the task. Gracias, mi amigo. My very life I owe to you. De nada, replied Jake as he sat down across from his rotund and damp companion. Warbride may be a fanatic, but she's not stupid. She knows with your connections to Bennett Sands, you're more valuable to her alive than dead. Let us hope you are right, returned the corpulent prisoner, and that I have not just leapt from the frying pan into El Infierno.
I like that one a lot.
And number 5, last one.
Okay.
Jake came into a dingy back room. Standing next to a pile of broken plas tiles, he saw a tall cyborg. Beth stunned me again, said Jake. Several seconds later, the cyborg responded. You guessed it, bucko. You should know better than to trust women, especially one that beautiful. All right. I got some good ones.
All right. That's very good. I have my answers. You ready?
Yep. Let's hit me.
This is risky because, again, don't have the
pencil.
Dixon Ticonderoga.
Built in an excuse. That was a good move on your part.
Oh, come on. Oh, I'm hitting the microphone as I try to check my pen. Oh, it's a red Marriott hotel pen. So here we go.
Oh, wow. That is, if there's a bad luck I've ever heard one.
I'm going to go number 1 is real and 2 through 5 are fanfic.
Wow. He did it.
No way.
Perfect. Wow. Yep. The only real one was the return of Winger. Man. There was a couple ones there that that I wanted to be real. I thought that Bennett Sands is Sonny Hikori and he has my son is a great.
Oh, it's so good.
Fantastic twist.
Yeah.
And the descriptions of Globo were, a little over the top, but very funny.
I mean, barely over the top.
Yeah, exactly.
You read what I just read about him. Wow.
Yeah, well done, everybody. So that was Nick did the Bennett Sands' Sonny Hikori. Kara Storm did You Were Hanging with the Droid and You Thought That Was Mom. Tom did the staunch the flow of perspiration from his bulbous and amply proportioned head. And Daniel did, you guessed it, bucko, you should know better than to trust women. So congratulations, everybody. You didn't fool them, but they were all well done.
They were very good, but, as you learn and adapt, so do I. Am I a cyborg? I don't know. I have a saw hand. Does that count? No, hand. What? Saw hand? What is
knife
it?
Hand?
Knife
hand.
hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back into the story, or what passes for one here. We're at chapter 24. He's been rescued from the bulls, and we start off with another heck of a way to start a sentence, to start a chapter. The robot madam greeted Jake warmly.
Yes.
She was so they've got a Shatlar's signature combo in this introduction to the robot madam. We got a fake word and we got a plump. She was tall and wide with an ample chrome-plated bosom showing beneath her shimmering glow gold dress. Been one hell of a long time, Jake, honey, she boomed as she gave him another enthusiastic hug. Her plump chrome cheeks were decorated with glimmering gems.
Yeah, I stopped. The glow gold actually drained the life out of me. I said I no longer have the ability. I would write all of them down at the beginning of the chapter, and I just stopped. I'm like, look, I don't even know what to do anymore.
They have come fast and furious, and it's hard to keep track of them all once but that one still stood out at me despite that fact. But so he's here. They don't really explain why he's at I guess he's tracking down the writer Ogden, who's here to do a piece on
the writer who? I'm sorry.
Ogden Spires. God damn it.
I love it.
I didn't even notice. I hope I never meet one in real life because that would be very embarrassing.
Actually we're selling to a VC group riff track to a guy named Ogden. So
people wrote in. People mentioned that a short we did at one of our live shows was Custard the Dragon, written by Ogden Nash.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's why you knew Ogden Nash. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so the madam is sort of giving him a tour of the brothel, I guess it is. And it's sort of like, you go there for Andy hookers, but there's also screens where you can watch the people having these encounters. So it's a weird sort of mishmash of like a casino sports book and a brothel. She's showing him that sort of sports book type area where you can watch the screens. The black GLA reporter was up on the second level, walking slowly along and muttering into the recorder mic in his hand. Something like 30 customers were enjoying the screens on the 4 tiers.
Yeah, I was very confused by what were they doing out there, right? Because they were like, the screens are all set up along this hallway.
Mm-hmm.
But it's supposed to be kind of an old timey, I mean, Andy hookers. This is well, they say whorehouse, Andy hookers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just
Wild West type of.
Yeah, but her
like
name
Westworld.
then she's Mama
Raina
or Rihanna. Is she supposed to be? I don't know.
Yeah, that's like Mama Queen. But yeah, so she's like, I think she's just your classic sort of like hooker with a heart of gold type of thing. But she's also a like very blatant racist, as we
oh boy, yeah. I hope you have it written down. I do too.
This was a passage that I tried to fool you with as fanfic, and it may have. I'm not sure. It was so over the top. But hey, chop suey! Shouted Mama Reina at a Chinese tourist who was aiming his camera at a row of view screens. You were supposed to check your goddamn camera. So that's a delightful passage. But we talked about how that was sort of like an 80s trope, was that the Asian tourists would always be taking pictures of stuff. And that's on full display here.
And it goes on.
It does. Yes, absolutely.
I would like to say, and I would, again, this is the words of Shatlart. I'm going to read them. This podcast does not in any way endorse them. And I don't think I need to warn you anymore. You probably know. So she says, no pictures allowed in here. Hand it over pronto. And then a couple sentences later, no pictures, you dinks, she announced to the rest of the voyeurs. And then she puts him down, right?
Yeah.
A thin, crackling beam of greenish light shot out of the tip of the metal finger, hitting the Chinese square in the forehead. I don't think we have used that term anymore. Mama Reina, please.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we draw the line here. We're watching people have zero gravity mud sex, but this is not, we cannot abide this. But his last moments, I think he's just stunned, but he gasped because she catches him. He gasped, teetered for about 9 seconds, and then came falling down toward the floor. And this is, it's the like you said, is he messing with us at this point in time? If he is, it's a very, very like, it's like one of those online video, like anti-comedy videos where it's so playing it so straight laced that you're like, I guess this is probably a joke, but I'm just not seeing what the point of it is.
Yeah. Is it towards the end of the book? Is it going to get funny, or something's not funny? It's anti-comedy, but then you do it long enough. But I don't even see the handle in on this one. I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah. So yeah, I in the context of that, like, I thought no pictures, you dinks was funny, but now it sounds kind of like unfortunate when you say it in the rest of the context of the Chinese stuff. I'm not sure if that was supposed to be intentional.
I believe it is a slang. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it is an old timey slang. I don't think anybody here will be offended because nobody it's not a thing. So, but
it sounds like a like you idiots. Like I don't think it's specifically targeting. I don't think it's a whole group of.
It is.
Okay.
It is. It's just old is all.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's always it's a fine line with those, but this is it's a fine line. But then so they take a look at what people are watching on the thing. And so I guess people are just fine going into these rooms with these Andy hookers, knowing that their buddies or whoever's going to be watching them on these monitors. You'd think that would discourage people. But I suppose once you've crossed this line, there's just you just don't care about things the same way that a normal person would. But on screen 42, there's an overweight, pudgy man of nearly 50 enjoying free fall sex with 2 silver-plated nymphet androids. Screen 43 shows us a fat middle-aged lady being tied to a pain bed by a naked male android wearing a sombrero. What is going on? Why are all these people overweight, pudgy, plump, or fat?
He's got some hang-ups. Either Shatner or Goulart does, but maybe it is just Shatlart all down the line. I don't know.
Because this would have been the era of Star Trek V when, Kirk was sort of like, girdling his way into his uniform type of thing too. So it's not like it's it's not like he's a strapping guy at this point in time.
Well, let me step back and ask this question. So there are the what do you call them? The suicide robots, right? The
Oh yeah. What
kamikazes. The kamikazes.
Sure. Yeah, they were like kamikaze pilots. What do we call? Yeah, kamikazes.
Yeah. So those are very realistic, right? Because they can walk up to you. You would, he was supposed to meet that doctor or whatever. That was the kamikaze robot we heard from, right? Okay.
Plump doctor.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to work this out. Then we learn that Kitteridge and Beth, and we see Beth, and she's obviously nearly, except for that little flap under her breast. But no, she's as human as you can be. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now there's silver-plated nymphet androids, and there's the plump chrome-cheeked, and there's Winger with his chrome, and he has chrome eyelids. What is going on? Why are people preferring this when it's obvious that there are people who can pass for any kind of human you want? Are joke or what? Why are you going to an Andy whorehouse and then there's a plump chrome-plated woman? And I don't mean to diss your preference, whatever you like, man. I'm just saying I think he's confused about his own world and his world building. That if there are very realistic, super hot women available, I just don't. I don't know. Do you know?
I would. I know. I totally understand where you're coming from. I would, however, direct you to the entire internet as a rebuttal.
Of course. But no, I'm just trying to work out what
body pillows,
who's doing what,
rigs mounted in minions, inflatable cows. All these things are.
I know. But apparently, okay. So the chrome. So we're just going with the fact that covering yourself in chrome is an erotic thing in Jake's future.
I would assume that maybe getting these super realistic ones are more expensive than the sort of bare skeleton chrome type of thing. I don't know, but chrome is not like a inexpensive material either. So
anyway, all right. So.
It's like he was making it up as he went along. I bet they sorted out in Tech Kill. That's probably where it all.
He does a lot of spade work and just look, I know I glossed over a few things, but settle down for 15 chapters as I tie it all together.
Yeah. It's the opposite of Lost. He really did have that vision the whole way through. Right. But then it goes on. Ogden Swires is taking. I'm not even going to pretend. Swires is taking notes. Swires watched another of the screens for a few seconds. I never found fat women that attractive, and two fat naked androids don't do anything. Andes don't do anything for me. So I was like, he's like Travis Bickle. He's like sitting in a cab being like, someday a plump rain is going to come and wash all these plump people into the plump sewers.
Yeah. I thought that maybe he was protesting too much. Using two sentences to talk about how much. Can you believe this? I'm not turned on by two fat Andys doing it in the mud. Am I right, guys?
The service person from the casino goes, "Your room is ready, Mr. Swires, with the plumpest android do we have?" And he's like, "Different Swires from a reporter from a different fact scene is who you were."
Right. Okay, so finally, this I believe was the sentence that you I think you got me on a previous fanfic with the thing about it might be that Vargas, despite his closeness to your old friend Warbride, is linked up with someone else, such as Sonny Hikori or one of the other techie. Yes, or possibly even Bennett Sands.
Yeah, my note was, we already covered this, but let's just marvel in its ineptness one more time.
I still laughed at it, even knowing that I had been fooled by it before.
4 people that we have not met but have been discussed ad nauseum, and I guess in a movie or whatever, you can't immediately jump ahead to the characters. That's why you tell a story, you build towards meeting someone. It wouldn't be the Wizard of Oz if you weren't talking about him before you got there. But man.
But this is spreading it a little thin over these characters. If this were, like you say, Wizard of Oz, name anything, Sauron. Eventually we're going to meet Sauron.
Sure.
He's going to come down from the tower and we're going to have but these are just like Vargas. I honestly don't know who Vargas is. I don't remember who Vargas is. Do you?
And,
Who's
and you
Vargas?
shouldn't have to. I believe that Vargas, Warbride's right-hand man, not her generals. We meet them later. So a different right-hand man. It's been intimated that he's been jealous of Jake because he used to have a relationship with Warbride. And Vargas is the guy who ordered the Fat Globo to set Jake up by telling Jake to go to some place where he would then be set up by bringing him to the place he was already going to.
Okay.
So yeah, there you go.
And Bennett Sands is he's just like a company owner that his wife was having an affair with, right?
We should have done a telephone game of this. Describe who Bennett Sands is in every one of these episodes, because I think it would have just changed, just like it would have grown unrecognizable from what it initially was. I think Bennett Sands was a guy who was an investor or partner of Dr. Kitteridge. And he was also someone who employed Jake's wife.
And then Warbride, he had an affair with Warbride, or they worked together or did something.
It's another weird sort of running heavy air quote joke is that people are like, yeah, your ex Warbride, and Jake's like, we were never that serious. It's like that type of thing. So we have no sense of what really happened there because it's sort of being played for a laugh. But so she's his ex, and Sonny Hikori is a tech kingpin that Jake was trying to set up or was trying to take down, who then they think may have like tried to crash the Kitteridge's plane because they were developing the anti-tech.
Ah, okay. All right.
Sure. And need I remind you, there are 80 pages left in the book, and we have not met a single one of these four characters.
Oh, no. This chapter contains one of my favorite, maybe I'm rushing ahead, but this is not going to spoil anything, is that, what's her name, Beth, I think, asked this of Jake. How old were you when your mother died? His response, I forget, he said. Around 16 or 17, which reminded me of what's the video game movie where they
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Remember when our parents died? What? Give me more detail.
Yeah,
I'm not really.
You know what? I do.
Now that you bring it up, I do remember. How old were you? I forget.
Yeah, right. And then he goes on to clearly talk about his his sort of broken home and troubled childhood. So it was very clearly a turning point that he would remember exactly where he was when it happened.
Yes. This was Beth, in case you were wondering which Beth, it was the dark-haired woman. She brings up again 700 times. It is so bizarre.
I liked, I don't remember who was, I think Beth was asking this. She says, but you trust Swires? And Jake says, a lot more than I trust people like Globo. People like Globo, so other sweating fat guys, I suppose, is the takeaway from there.
Other bulbous-headed fat guys, as our Fan Fic guy writes.
But I think that's the end of that chapter. They sort of have recruited Swires to go along with them because he, I guess, had an interview with Warbride, so they're going to tag along so that we can go and finally meet one of those four characters from the Mount Rushmore of discussed characters off screen.
It's not exactly the end of the chapter, the last line.
Oh, boy.
It gets very sweaty again. I'm going to get close to the microphone for this one.
Lobo sweaty? Yeah, give us some ASMR.
Passing him on the way to her doorway, she paused and kissed him on the cheek. Good night. So that's pretty sweet. So he's once again, the robot woman. So he's been betrayed by the robot kid, but he's just hanging out with a robot woman and letting her kiss him. Repeatedly. Right. This is, second time, I suppose.
Sure. And we didn't talk about this, but the way that she was able to rescue him from the bull ring was that she had planted a fly speck sized tracking device on him the last time she had gone in for a kiss. But so he felt betrayed by that briefly, but then was like, it's a good thing you did that. But
her interactions with him have been to knock him out several times with a shock ring, plant things on him, falsely kiss him. And he's completely on board.
Right. And, we see immediately in the next chapter just about how on board he might be because chapter 25, they are driving to go to visit Warbride, but they sort of come to a checkpoint and a captain is interrogating them because he's worried they're going to try to infiltrate their paramilitary operation. So he says, "Less flippancy in your answers, if you don't mind." The captain took one precise step forward and slapped Beth hard across the face. "Damn you!" Jake started to lunge at him. So he's either acting here, or it's been less than 48 hours since he met this person, and he's immediately reversed his whole, like, "I don't work with Andes, you guys are scum" type of thing. Like, Beth has won him over with her hotness that much that he's now, like, lunging at this guy who's mistreating her.
Who's mistreating the android? Who? What? Oh my God.
There's another, like, this happened a bunch, and people wrote in about this too, but he has a weird way of constructing sentences. And this is just an example. It happened multiple times in this section, but it's happened before too. "That sure isn't," complained Swires, "going to help our case."
Yes. Oh my God, they're all over the place.
And like, it's been, we learned how to diagram sentences in 7th grade, so it's been a long time. And I don't consider myself a copy editor or that type of writer, but that's wrong, right? That's very jarring.
Utterly wrong. I had that as a dumb sentence, so I do have a backup.
Okay.
Yeah, that is so bizarre. That sure isn't, complained Swires. So you're completely out of the construction of what he's speaking at this point.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. You could, just as a tip to writers, you don't have to actually talk about someone talking. You can just have them talk. And you don't have to describe how they talked unless the thing is adding to it. And his are always like, "Wait, what? Why did you stop in the middle of that?" Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's another one of those PEMDAS problems with the order of operations of a sentence, which is, not something you want to be mentally computing as you're reading a terrible book like this.
Here's a problem I had with the opening sentence of chapter 25, if you're following along. The land van drove itself. A small black guide box had been attached, blah, 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 blah. So what the hell was all these sombrero-wearing Andes? With the guys going like, "Am I doing it right, senor?" I can't, most offensive. Look, that's supposed to add to the thing. Like, if we're past that, if you can just navigate by yourself, why are you trying to? I mean, he was taking cabs with guys who were like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a mess." You could just be a box that I don't even have to talk to. But
that's a very good point. It's like
this is an option.
Yeah, it's like anachronistic technology, like, put the touch tone phones like on your iPhone. It doesn't need to make the sounds or anything like that, but it just is that's the way it used to be, and people have sort of got used to that. Or even the phrase "dial a phone," used to actually dial one, and like now we still talk about it that way, even though nobody has ever dialed a phone in the past 20 years. But I guess just the comfort of getting onto a self-driving land bus and there being a horrible stereotype there is just something that people are sort of used to and take pleasure in.
who turns to you and then gives you irritating conversation. That's what the future needs more of. Anyway, so he goes to this new trio of people, the Jake, the dark-haired woman whose hair is brushing against her shoulders constantly, goes with Ogden, right? Right.
Great. Wow. Very impressive.
And then maybe this is where they meet Vargas. Is that the guy that they meet? And I think there was a bit of fanfic about this because there's a bunch of land vehicles mentioned and air vehicles in this, just as a throwaway sentence, and talking about burnt out husks of these combat robots and stuff like that. So
yeah. I don't think this is Vargas. I think some of them are taking orders from Vargas. So Vargas is sort of running the cabal. So this is the guy that slapped Beth was Admiral Aguilar or something.
Oh, Aguilar. Okay, sorry. That's right. Yeah. I have the notes here. I got them mixed up.
And then General Ribera, who is like Jake's old buddy from back on the force, busting Andy Hookers type of thing. He shows up later. But they sort of have like another holographic house set up.
Yeah, this makes no sense. These holographic houses.
This was a like they're trying to get to see War Bride, and they have this. I guess this sort of establishes her military regimen, but not a lot happened in this chapter. Another something that I liked though was Aguilar, who's the bad guy. He says to them, "You're in a war zone here," reminded Aguilar. what some effete public relations person may have promised you back in the safety of. So he just takes, apropos of nothing, he decides to slam the PR department, Warbride's PR department, by calling them effete, which was I thought was pretty funny.
That common Mexican word. Here's a sentence I need people to help me figure out what this means. Aguilar moved toward the rear of the vehicle. He clicked his heels and bowed as a blind door hissed slowly open.
Oh, man.
A blind, there are blinds sliding across it, or the door itself is blind, or I think it was one of those cases where he used a word that's supposed to be like, and a blind door, and then didn't think that actually doesn't mean anything. There's
like a door that didn't look like a door before it opened, like that sort of futuristic.
I guess that's what it means, but he clicked his heels, so he was seen. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was a smooth thing, and then I don't know.
Yeah, but they're the characters in this scene were not very interesting or good, and I thought that was maybe why they keep talking about characters and not introducing them, because they realize that they don't have the means to actually make them into interesting or compelling people once they finally show up.
Right. This is, their record is not good at this point. I have one more in this chapter. I have an odd hand thing again.
Ooh.
We know that Shatlart cannot write hands, and so this may seem subtle at first, but think about it. Jake spread his hands wide as he's talking to, it's supposed to be a gesture, but he spread his hands wide, not his arms, where you put your arms wide and go, what's going on? That's the moment. It's like, hey, what the hell's going on, man? So he stopped. So were they like jazz hands? So he's
or like
spreading
trying to palm a basketball.
Yeah, he's spreading his fingers apart as wide as he could, is what that means, right? You spread your arms wide would be
arms wide open.
Yeah, Jake couldn't believe it. So he spread his arms wide, but no, he spread his hands wide. So maybe he had them right up by his chest, like the little jazz number, and then he just spread his fingers really wide. What's going on? So,
or like that creature in Pan's Labyrinth, as he opens his hand and he's got the eyes in them like that.
Yeah, that's what I figured Jake was doing.
But there were four characters we had not yet met. We're about to meet one of them, which is exciting. In chapter 26, which is Warbride. We're finally going to get introduced to the elusive Warbride. But it starts by them. They've traveled through this checkpoint, and now they've entered the Great Forest, and we get just a compelling description of the Great Forest. You or me might read the words Great Forest, and we might think, what might this look like? This is a very foreign concept to me. But he fortunately describes the idea of a forest to us to start the chapter. The huge trees rose up hundreds of feet and stretched away ahead of them like endless rows of giant pillars. Darkness was slowly starting to fill in the spaces between the trees, and their high, distant branches seemed to be fading. So it's a forest.
Yes.
And we've all seen a forest hundreds, if not thousands of times, and this is another one of them.
So put a forest in your mind. It's that. Yeah. Let me just point out before we leave it, at the very end of, I had it in all caps. In chapter 25, they're still talking about that crash. There was apparently a crash, and it took place in the Selva Grande, which she now controls. And it's like the crash is another Bennett Sands or Sonny Hikori. That's what he went there to investigate. Right, you know what I'm talking? Why didn't he just get to the crash? They're still talking about that crash and what happened to the daughter, to Beth. And it's chapter 25. That was the thing. Anyway.
The MacGuffin, I suppose. It's a book of all MacGuffins and no actual substance, I suppose. Just keep chasing one after another.
And then at the beginning of chapter 26, line of dialogue, Bennett Sands.
Yeah, I was like, yes, for the love of God. We all know him.
It's just a tick at this point.
And then so Swires has been taking notes. He's they're sort of making him to be a lame. He's not a good reporter. He's reporting on things without getting out and actually looking at them. And the characters call him out on that. So he's sort of a joke of a character. But at some point in time, he says, Swires asks, "Can I use my camera now?" Smiling faintly, Ribera replied, "No one will object, senor." And so I think Ribera just then went on to apologize. "I'm sorry, my facial expressions have no relationship or bearing to my words or mood.
Right.
I just smile faintly every now and then, even though I'm just telling you you can use a camera."
Look, just, if you need to, just look at my booted foot. That's actually a better indication of what's going on with me. I'm very bad at this.
"If I order onion rings for the table, will you have some?" He frowned slightly. Ribera replied,
Yes.
I would eat one or two.
Yeah, this is the reporter is supposed to be the satire of the book because but it's so poorly done. I was writing down one of his sentences and realized, oh, it's only after the fact that you go like people are, sneering at him and everything, but it's not.
Right.
It's not in any way sharply done or
No, because
it's not pointed or anything, because it seems like the dialogue that's all around it, except that people are commenting like, "What a dipshit."
And he's immediately made into a sympathetic figure because they knock him unconscious at breakfast unprovoked.
Yeah, right.
There's no reason to think that he's not bothering them consistently. He's not showing up one after another. And then they do that. He just sits down at the table and they're like, bam.
Yeah. So it goes pretty quickly. They get summoned to the speech of War Bride. We finally meet a character who has been referenced, not as much as Hikori or Sans, but certainly has been mentioned, I'm sure, 40 times up till now, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, what they didn't mention is that I guess she's a cyborg. She has a metal hand. She is
a cyborg. Yep.
They never call her that because I guess that's different for whatever reason. But so, yeah, she does have a metal hand, and she's leading. They come to her. She's having a propaganda meeting. So they've got a crowd of 400 people, but then they flesh it out with holograms to make it look like it's 1,000. And it seems unnecessary.
For propaganda reasons, which I laughed about, okay, that's all post-production. You don't need to put those in right now.
Yeah. Get the clone tool. You can make that. No one's going to be scanning this that closely. But yeah, I guess so. She shows up, and I thought it was pretty awesome. The amplified voice of a woman came echoing through the great trees. "Who am I?" "War Bride," answered the as yet unseen crowd. "I cannot hear you." "War Bride." "Once again, please. I still can't quite hear you." "War Bride," all caps. Yeah. So I was like, oh, it's good to know that the military cabal leaders use the same tactics as when the REO Speedwagon comes to the state fair, or when your vice principal was leading a high school pep rally type of thing.
Oh, the famous story of this is many years ago. Who's the band who sang Slow Ride?
Foghat?
Foghat. A friend of mine, his brother went to see it. We know this mutual fellow that they teased it out. They're like, "Are you ready?" And the crowd was like, "Yeah." "Are you ready to take a ride?" "Yeah, we think so. I don't know. Yeah. What kind of ride is it going to be?" "Are you ready to take a slow ride?" And of course, they go bananas at that. It was just the comedy of teasing that out. "Who am I?" "War Bride, I think, right?"
Yeah, exactly.
"Why are we not getting responses for this?"
Both the idea of anyone who doesn't know why they're there being in the crowd, being like, what are we building towards? What is this ride we're speaking of? I came to a concert. Is this the band that sings that song? Okay. Yeah, I guess I thought that was REO Speedwagon. I get the two confused, but all right. Yeah, no, I'm aboard. That's a good riff.
Right.
But then she not only does that, she does a thing that she launches into her backstory, which is good.
Man, yeah. Read the whole thing if you have it there.
I have, I've got some excerpts, but she goes on. She says, "I have been called War Bride since I was 17, since my brother and father vanished. I have been called War Bride since the day I was raped by federal soldiers, raped by 5 men who serve a tyrant. I have been War Bride since that day." And so at this point, people in the audience have to be like, is she going to say this every time she does a speech? She's a well-established tyrant. We know her backstory. We're here. We're on board. You don't have to.
We don't need sing Slow Ride.
We don't need an autobiography. But then I have been War Bride since that day, since that dark day when I swore I would not marry a lover, not a good man who wanted me. I would be married to war. So that's That's like the mother of dragons, like explaining that every time she showed up on Game of Thrones to, to torch a village or whatever.
And then she yells out, "Tell me my name." To which, of course, they respond, "War Bride." But the one guy who probably went like, "It's Debbie? I remember I met you. Oh shit, no, sorry, War Bride."
Right. Sorry, yep. Yeah, the guy just nudges him in the elbow, like, I can't bring you anywhere.
Come on, man.
He's like ordering a hot dog from the vendor while that's happening, so he doesn't. He's like, "Dude, down here, relish and but War Bride, and relish on one, mustard
and ketchup." He's putting ketchup on it. I can't bring you anywhere, man.
And then the other thing that I thought was funny, she covers her whole backstory, but there's a she's not plump, but the characters, some of them are not fully on board with the way she looks. She wore her hair cut short, and there were traces of weariness and strain showing in her tanned face. And it goes on to say, though, she was a pretty woman with an intensity in her dark eyes. So I think it's like, what is War Bride supposed to do? She's out here leading a revolution, like an insurrection, and she's getting criticized for looking a little tired.
Yeah, well, he also describes her later. His only one description of women is limited to hair color. A dark-haired woman wearing tan trousers, highly polished black boots, and a blood-red sleeveless tunic stood alone on the stage. So she's weary, but
hair worn.
Yes.
But then someone else who is not having it is Beth. I feel like Beth was maybe feeling a little jealousy. Beth leaned closer to Jake and whispered, "She looks a lot older than I expected." Jake says, "War Bride's a good 5 years younger than I am. That doesn't exactly make her a teenager." Beth settled down cross-legged behind him. "You've held up a lot better." So it's like the claws are coming out now.
Well, a little bit of Goulart turned in a chapter that didn't mention how young and virile the hero is.
Right.
Shatner's like, look, I'm still doing okay, or I'm doing better than War Bride.
Right.
Like, I just thought that was so strange. Wait a minute, what? He's having people compliment him in the course of this thing.
Right.
She looks pretty old, but you, wow.
Right. As they're doing the Hollywood romance of pairing up like Bill Murray with Scarlett Johansson from their age difference here type of thing. And then she not only is, attracted to him and kissing him, she's also then complimenting him and dissing other women. It's pretty awesome.
Right.
But someone whose looks have been commented on before is also going to show up to end the chapter. Someone was being led out onto the stage now. His pale blue suit was tattered, splashed with blood. His face was bruised and cut, but Jake recognized him. That's Globo. So I wonder, just curious what might have tipped him off. I don't know. Globo hasn't really had any distinguishing features, so I didn't say how Jake recognized him, so I was left wondering that myself.
His pale blue suit was tattered, splashed with blood, and yet he looked dry and handsome.
Yes.
He really cut quite a fine figure.
Yes.
Composed. And
Though his fate seemed imminent, he managed to wink at a woman in the front row, and she was immediately smitten with his raw charisma.
I wonder who the friend of Goulart's was who was like, I read that book of yours. How sweaty do you think I am, you son of a...
His buddy George Lobo.
Oh, well, there we are. So once again, I guess we have met another character. So we're up to one as far as
four. We should have.
Because we haven't met Beth yet. The real Beth. We met her.
Should have. Exactly. We haven't met the Doctor. We haven't seen the crash. We haven't met Bennett Sands, Sonny Hokori, or Rafe Vargas. We should have done I guess we didn't realize it was going to be a thing, but you know how people do when there's like at a baby shower, people like pick the day it's going to come.
Yeah, right.
Should have done that. Which chapter will we finally meet Bennett Sands or Sonny Hokori in? Because I think we would have not given them this much credit. They could have drawn it out this far.
If there is another chapter where they mention them, I swear to God.
Well, let's read some people's emails.
We're going to the party. We're going to the game. We're going to the disco. We're going to cruise out, man. We're stealing people's mail. Stealing people's mail. Stealing people's mail. Stealing people's mail.
Steal away, Connor.
All right, we got an email from Nick, who fastest way to my heart is to mention things from the final 5 pages of Armada. That's some of my favorite pages we've covered on this podcast. And this one manages to do that. Reading this latest section, it dawned on me why the Plaz thing is so incredibly baffling. Apart from appearing 71 times in a single book, it was the sequence with the bulls that did it. No one other author I've ever read has been so obsessed with telling you exactly what everything is made of. Think about that. Even without the Plaz prefix, Shatlard has told you exactly what at least 71 things are made out of. For example, every time you see Plaz glass window, drop the Plaz, and he is telling us that it is a glass window. Here is a sample passage from near the end of chapter 16. There was a round metal table with 3 chairs. At one of the places sat a Plaz mug. And then Nick says, why would it make any difference at all if it was written like this? There was a round table with 3 chairs. At one of the places sat a mug. Plaz really stands out because it's a completely stupid made-up thing, but the obsession is more prevalent and manifests itself in a more subtle way, too. The word metal appears 72 times. Only 5 of those are part of the word metallic. There are no other variations. That makes 67 things that are being described as metal. Considering that Plaz is almost always a prefix, metal wins. It is to Tekwar what dodecahedron was to Armada.
Oh, wow.
And then he says, interestingly, nothing is Plaz metal.
Oh, I think, did I put that? I put some sort of plaschrome was a term that fooled a few people in the text.
This one is from Janelle. It was very funny. It was referencing the Madame Reina's calling the guy the Chinese, or no, I guess she didn't do that. Goulart called him the Chinese when he got shot, but she forwarded a email from her neighborhood next door service. You know, like a service where neighbors can essentially just tell people like so and so's not cutting their lawn or
right.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
But so she this was subject break-ins. It'll make sense at the end. The neighbor had written just a suggestion, but perhaps since almost all homes have garages, cars should be put in them. So many people use their garages for their accumulated junk, which can easily be stored in the numerous conveniently located storage units. Garages are for cars, not for storing all that I just can't bear to part with goodwill-ready junk. This is a woman just writing to anonymous neighbors. I'd love to see our streets free from the usual parked cars of residents. I rarely have a space in front of my home, even though I do not need it. It would be nice just to have. My car is always in the locked garage, and the car is locked even when in there. Also, more cameras in the neighborhood would be helpful. Then, when caught, the perps would have to pay a steep price. No slap in the wrist. The Chinese have a good idea, but that would never fly here, unfortunately. End of email. And so Janelle said her boyfriend had spent hours wondering what the hell the Chinese do and for what.
I paused and I'm... Wait. Do you have a clue? You must have thought about this.
I mean, just surveillance? I have no idea. Like, I mean... cameras, like just cameras everywhere. I have no idea. Obviously this is a weird woman who's comfortable writing horrible emails like this to her neighbors, but it's baffling.
Wow. I guess, she should have, if she could only be more puzzling if she had said something like, the Portuguese have settled this.
Right,
be like,
exactly.
Wait a minute. What? I'm trying to think
a
about
society nobody has real stereotypes about or ones that they're aware of.
Right. Weird.
So that's good. Anyone has any idea what the Chinese are doing to prevent car break-ins in your suburban HOA communities? Please let us know. We have one more email from Sam. He's listening to your current Tekwar shellacking. It's really starting to hit me how Klein and Goulart are cut from the same cloth.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that's been getting me lately is their mutual lack of imagination when it comes to future slang. Aside from lazy phrases like Plaz and Gunter, both of them seem to think that the past is the best model to follow when describing how people talk in the friggin' future. Goulart gives all his characters all the old-timey phrases and stereotypical regionalisms, and Klein apparently believes people in the 2040s are going to unironically talk like leet hacksaws from the late 90s. Klein also likes to have his teenage characters talk like 40-year-olds, but that's because he's never met a teenager in his life. But I guess I have to give the edge to Goulart, because as far as I can tell, no other writer has thought to use that particular quirk of style, and nor should they. But I feel like he's trying, or at least he's just so inept that he can't see how weird it reads. Comparatively, Ernest Klein is the least imaginative writer who ever lived, so F him. Do I sound bitter? Anyway, keep up the good work, and I'm glad Mike is suffering slightly less on this one. I know I am.
Oh, nice. I would point out, though, that you don't have a lot of clues. What was that writer's name?
Sam.
As to Strella's age, she is not a teenager. So if you are trying to pull her into your discussion of how teenagers talk,
right.
She is not yet 13. So
right, exactly. So yeah, maybe. But that was Klein doing that. So I guess Shatlard does that as well with the not quite teenagers who talk like 40-year-olds. But yeah, good emails, people. Thank you for writing them in. A lot of those people who wrote in are also our Patreon supporters. So if you want to join them over on Patreon, you can take the quiz. It's patreon.com/372pages. They get all the episodes early. And we're going to, since we're taking a break for Christmas and everything, we'll put up your little bonus episode about your nickname soon, Mike, too.
Oh, right. This is thrilling stuff. I have a follow-up to that I will unlock in a future thing, because there was fallout from it from the actual people involved.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah, I won't get too into it. It's very brief. It's only just a couple of the nicknames that other friends attempted to put on, and it created a firestorm of emails that'll very quickly explain, but that'll be nice. A little package to be unlocked. Then
maybe we'll have an interview with the guy who was at the Foghat concert as a bonus later, and then
he's always available.
Well, one last thing to do, and that's the dumb sentence of the week.
A sentence begins with a capital letter. A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big. A sentence ends with a period, or an exclamation, or a question mark. A sentence always ends with a period, or an exclamation,
or a plasmark. Anyway,
there we
go.
Yeah, we've got a
sentence of the week.
Yeah, every week we go through and pick a dumb sentence, and this week has been a bevy of dumb sentences from which to choose. A lot of people wrote in, so we'll start with Brad. This is when they were in the hologram house, or the hologram tent that the paramilitary guys had made. Slowly, with occasional jerks, a building began to take shape.
Yes.
Again, if we were able to, we'd love to see that animated, just to see how that was happening. A hologram would beam immediately into existence complete, right? It's not like a 3D printed building.
I don't know how the hologram thing is utterly. I don't get how it works and how it's supposed to make you feel like you're who's being fooled by it, because we all know they're holograms. And so when she's doing propaganda and everything, and then she just adds holograms to it, look, we all live in a world where we know all of this is easily available. So I don't believe you, and I don't care. And I don't think that you have a house that is 20 stories tall. You could do it anything, right? If there's a hologram, you could make
the Taj Mahal.
Yeah. So I don't get it, but it also doesn't seem like it. Oh, the other one, the guy didn't make his payment, so that sort of fuzzed out of existence, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. It took like 3 minutes, didn't it? It was it's like 3 minutes later he responded. It was one of those standing there next to each other moments. It was, one of the original ones of those. Yeah, well, we gave it just then more thought than the author did. So,
sorry.
Next is Dave, who wrote in. This one was really good. Dave's sentence was, he was about 40, and a little more than half of his face was handsome.
And where was that? I missed that.
That was him. That was him talking about the the general, his old buddy, I think, that showed up. One of those two guys in the paramilitary.
Oh yeah.
But he says that reminded him of Jake Cardigan channeling his inner Frank Drebin. He can't keep from reading that line in Leslie Nielsen's voice. Which once he said that, I was like, yeah, that's a pretty funny description of that one. It is a good Naked Gun kind of dialogue. Janelle wrote in and said the high ceiling was equally blank. That's when he's looking around trying to find an escape route, and there's no windows or doors. And then he looks where you'd expect to find a window or door, the ceiling. And then it's surprised that it was equally blank. Another, I forgot to take the name down of this person, but he wrote in both of the grammar things. That sure isn't, complained Swire's, going to help our case. And then that was the one we mentioned earlier. And then there was another one, the next chapter. Then Warbride might, said Jake, do stands a favor.
God, that is so bad. It's so irritating to read. It makes you instantly angry.
And you read it out loud once and you're like, we need to change this. It adds nothing to do it that way.
No, it's not a style that, I mean, does Shatner in his fevered dreams think like, I invented a new way to write a sentence, you know, like, it'll catch on, trust me, or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But the last one is Carrie. She said, this was Swires. I wasn't tired. He clicked off the recorder, letting his hand swing down to his side. I make it a point to get sufficient sleep, even when I'm covering a war. That's a sentence that a person would say. Sure. So mine, I had a few flagged. We covered a couple of them, but one that we did not. This is when Jake was fending for his life in the face of 3 mechanical bulls that are breathing fire and charging at him with steel talons. He stood still, wide-legged, trying to keep track of the actions of all 3 of the dangerous mechanisms. That's how you would refer to those bulls that are charging at you. Dangerous mechanisms. Like you would your garbage disposal.
Oh, he's doing again, it's like Tice. He just can't think of another word or what?
Yep. It's the thesaurus-ian the problem.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, again, we covered mine. Are we to me yet? Can I go?
Yeah, that's it.
Teacher, can I go? I'm just pointing out glow gold again because it's above my dumb sentence of the week. Just reminding everyone, glow gold. GLOGOLD. But here's my dumb sentence of the week. And this is Mama Reina. Just in again, not a lot of fireworks, but just listen to this sentence in isolation. Chuckling, she returned to her huge lucite rocking chair. It's just not a sentence you're going to get in any other book.
That's true. Yeah,
so,
it's unique as hell. Oh man,
chuckling. Again, though, who is that person supposed to be? Why does she have a huge lucite rocking? Like, how big?
Right?
Is it 9 feet tall? Is it 13 feet tall?
And what is the difference between plaz and lucite?
That's what I'm saying. What the hell? We already had a word, lucite. I believe it's probably it's copyrighted, and I don't know.
Yeah, wow, that's good. That was another one I glanced over. Yeah, lucite is a high quality trademark version of acrylic resin developed by DuPont.
It is plaz. It's plaz everything. Lucite. We already had it. Oh, Shatlar.
Wow.
Shatlar.
Well,
Shatlar.
the important thing is that she was chuckling as she did that.
her huge rocking chair. I remember when my grandma would chuckle and return to her huge rocking chair.
It's impossible for me to hear about someone chuckling without thinking about my friend's dad breaking the silence to go, John Candy.
What was
they were driving in silence, and just like he chuckled and said that to himself, just as a fond mental reminisce that he didn't bother to explain to anybody.
Oh, I hope to God that everyone looked at each other and said, if anyone responds to this in any way, I hope the freeze out was hard and fast.
We cannot know. None of us, we will take this to our graves knowing what moment he was thinking of or why it reminded him of it in this just drive to grandma's house.
We are not opening this door, and if you do, I will kill you. Yeah.
Maybe he was, that was his Chinese. It was what the Chinese do. That was his John Candy moment.
Right.
Yeah, no idea. He's never expressed interest in John Candy. We've never watched a movie with him.
Oh, that would be it. John Candy. That would be a good name for a character in a comic book. Oh, wait, there's an actor name? Oh, okay. All right, what's our assignment?
Oh, yeah, our assignment is reading through chapter 30. That'll be the second to last one. Got some extra time to do it, so I think it'll be good. Will Bennett Sands turn up? What do you think? What's your gun to your head?
I don't think so. I think that's going to end up to be, that's going to be his little gag. I think he's going to think it's funny when they never appear. And it's going to be a speech from a different villain who's going to say, the whole Sonny Hikori, Bennett Sands was a setup and you fell for it. Wow. You stupid man. I always knew that you were jealous. And it's going to be that kind of thing. And it's, I don't know.
The Doctor's going to do that?
Beth, I don't know. I don't know.
His wife and son, 2 other characters we haven't met who don't get talked about nearly as much as these other idiots.
I think they are just cannon fodder. They get killed immediately by a mechanical bull or something, and then he's like, no.
Oh. Well, a lot of mysteries in these last 80 pages, a lot of things that I'm sure are going to blow our minds when we get to them. So yeah, through 30 for the next time, and go check out our Patreon. Thanks to everyone who does already. I guess we'll see you next time.
Yeah, this has been a great episode. I'm sorry to take the break. Actually, I've been enjoying this. I am Michael J. Nelson.
I'm Connor Lestucco. See you next time on 372 Pages We'll Never Get Back.
Thanks so much.